Shanti everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Monday workshop series. As always, every Monday we have a special guest speaker, special yogi who has been practicing Rajayoga Meditation, who has seen a lot of phases in the Brahmin journey. And so the main intention of this event is to pick up some of the deep nuances that help them to face the challenges, of course, but along with that, take power from Baba and to build that resilience, because this is a pilgrimage and it's the highest pilgrimage and it is deepest into the depth which we are walking on that unthreaded path. So each one of us have our own hurdles to get through, and some of these solutions may not be not so obvious. And this is an opportunity when we relate to others who are on the same pilgrimage, and how did they manage, how did they maneuver through the hurdles and challenges, and how did they find the solutions is what we try to pick. And today we have with us Brother Viggo from Denmark. Brother Viggo has been with Baba for over 38 years now. It's a lot of decades have passed by, and Brother Viggo has been very consistent, very steady, and he has been instrumental in doing Baba's service and starting a lot of centers in both in Romania and also in Denmark. And right now, it is 3:30 a.m. in Denmark right now. And we are really grateful for Brother Viggo for taking his special Amrit Vela time to spend with us Brahmins. And today we are going to hear a very special jewels and deep, intimate experiences. As he goes through his sharing, he'll also take us through some of the deep meditations. I had a great fortune of meeting Brother Viggo here in San Francisco in one of his visits. By profession, he's an IT professional, and he works for a lot of MNCs, including Ericsson. And he's very calm, composed, and very steady. And this is something that I want to pick from Brother Viggo. Thank you, Brother Viggo, for joining. Welcome. So looking forward to seeing or hearing your special experiences. Welcome.
Thank you, Harsha, and Om Shanti, everyone. So last time I was in San Francisco was in 2017. I probably met some of you, and I thought it was much longer time ago, but apparently it was as recent as 2017. And I still remember Harsha took me on a wild ride through San Francisco on bike, and I several hours up and down, and I came back and I was so exhausted. Rarely have I been so exhausted in my life. Since then, I understand that he has done half an Ironman, so I'm not sure I dare to come back, but at this safe distance, it should be okay. But anyway, yes, to start from the beginning, I mean, just briefly, I was born in the UK, in London. My dad had got a position there, so he moved a few years before and met my mum, who is French, who had moved there from Paris. So I was born in London, and we then came back to Denmark in '67. And I've then been growing up in Copenhagen, where I stayed until '99, when I moved here to Aarhus. Aarhus is the second city of Denmark in the west, on the mainland. And so I moved here to Aarhus with that sole purpose of starting Baba's service here. And I have been here since. And my spiritual journey started quite young. Quite early in my life. I was 21. My childhood and youth was not much different from anyone else's. I was quite much alone, because when my parents got divorced, I moved with my father. I went to my father's place and stayed with him, and he was a lot of the time he was not working, or he was traveling. So I was quite a lot alone, so that became, in a way, you can say, part of my DNA. That solitude, taking care of myself, and that I understand. Since then, I understand that this is probably a sort of sanskara that was reinforced, and which has followed me into the spiritual life. Solitude, I'll come back to that. But my spiritual journey really started when I read a book. I got a book from a friend called The Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda. I think many of you know it. Maybe you have read it. But that book really opened my eyes to this whole world, yogi world. And even though it's a different path from ours, there are still a lot of similarities, of course. And the whole idea, the whole prospect of something which was completely beyond, the life I lived and most people lived, it really intrigued me, and it turned me on to this journey. And I soon afterwards I came across the center in Copenhagen. It had just opened 1 year before, so there were 2 sisters there. Swedish sisters, as it is, the centers are often opened by foreigners or people from elsewhere. And then in this case, it was 2 Swedish sisters who had started the center. Small, very modest place, a shop, and I lived in the same neighborhood. So I would say, just to go back a bit, during my youth, my adolescence, I had not really been searching. I was very much, from a young age, I was very much into music, into jazz. I played the saxophone then, and I spent a lot of my hours playing and jamming, and that was sort of my, you can say, religion. I had not really, except for maybe some years, I had been around the age of 13 or so. I had a sort of almost epiphany. I realized that there were a lot of bad habits and issues in my character that I had to rectify. And I was sort of, I think, as part of natural aging and becoming more and more self-aware, I just realized that these were something I had to change. This was, I wouldn't say really a spiritual insight, but it was a sort of a step of self-realization. And I started actually to consciously, to make a conscious effort to change a lot of habits and things that I didn't consider good in my life. So, and quite successful. I mean, obviously without any yoga or any other spiritual support, but it was simply just by, you can say, the power of realization, which is and of basically establishing some value systems in my life. And I will come back to that as well, because this has also been a big topic, a big theme in my life since then. Okay, so jumping a bit forward again, I came to the center. I had just a year or 2 years before, after I had completed an apprenticeship. I was actually, my original professional background is bakery. I was 3 years in a baker's apprenticeship, and I left that trade many years ago, but that was my first training after school. So I, right after that apprenticeship, I took a backpacking trip to India, 2 months, I think, and traveled around in North India. And little did I know, of course, that I would return to India many times, and what an important role it would play in my life. But I was enchanted, very fascinated, and it sort of prepped me in a way for my Brahman life a few years later. So then I came to the center. Back in those days, in the 80s, there was a lot of expansion of centers in Europe and elsewhere. So a lot of BKs came those years, and we had very big centers around us in Hamburg and other places. They are now reduced to, almost nothing, or very small centers, but they were quite big then. And just prior to my arrival, Sudesh Didi had been visiting Copenhagen, and her poster was still in the shop window. So, of course, I just reckoned that she probably was running the center and lived inside. So I rang the bell, and of course she was not there. It was just a young, pale sister who opened the door, and we made an appointment for the course, and at that time it was still given as in India. 7-day course was given in 7 days, and during a week you had completed the whole course. And the following Monday I was in morning class, and I just never, turned back. It was, looking back, it was a very easy and very natural birth, in the sense that I never really made any conscious choice, or there was no sort of doubt or consideration. Was this a life I wanted to pursue, or it was just like being born? You don't question it. It's just you are there, and then it's, your life starts from there. So that has been a big fortune, I would say, in my life, that doubts has never been an issue. It has. I mean, it's simply, I would say, I'm almost ignorant of it. I cannot even imagine how it is, how you can doubt knowledge or this path. It's for me, it's there is just no alternative. And in a way, I think it's helpful when we sort of take that leap, because it's like this will give us a great endurance in whatever comes. I mean, we all know this path is not without challenges, but if we already have made a sort of the premise of our life is that we are here and we will remain here, and there is no other option for us. It's it's do or die. I mean, you have nothing to return to, and that, of course, is based on the faith and knowledge in the drama that there is. We are at the end of a long journey, and now is the time to accumulate. This is the window of opportunity for all of us, and this is the time to really create my life, to achieve whatever I want forever. So everything is at stake now. That is sort of the premise, and so I was, in a way, completely prepared for this this spiritual life. I would consider myself, and I was actually fully aware of that from the beginning, and even before I came to Baba. I was quite aware that somehow I was very depleted, as you can say, spiritually, in terms of stamina and sort of life force. I mean, I always felt old. I always felt sort of tired, like someone who has just been living a very, very long life. I mean, even as a child, I had that feeling. So, and of course, I didn't know why. Only later I understood the reason. But there was a very clear understanding from the very beginning that to me, my spiritual life, my BK life, was mainly about one thing, and that was spiritual empowerment. I mean, I had to really go through this purification process and accumulate as much yoga power as possible. I had immensely powerful yoga experiences from day one, actually, and they continued for many years, and a lot of amazing experiences and very, very life-changing experiences. I would say nothing else has, no other single aspect has been more important than my yoga experiences. So my whole life very early became revolving around this. This was really my main thing, yoga, and I always considered the service aspect to be, in a way, second priority. It was not. It was really not the main reason for why I was here. It was to accumulate, and service was sort of a thing that would pretty much follow as a consequence. But I first and foremost had to tend to myself and get myself sort of back on track, and so that was probably the reason why I became quite disciplined about my yoga. I mean, and that has never left me. I have always, even though it has not always, been so powerful since then, or it has not been, sometimes you're tired, or you're not really maybe having very good yoga results. But I always knew that it was important, and I had to sit there. And if we deviate from principles, if we deviate from our routines, it very, very easily will lead to a slackness, and we will sort of be led off track before we know of it, and it's that risk is always there. So it was, to me, always very important to keep up these routines. So that has, I think, been a great sustenance in my life. That I, again, it was one of those things I never really questioned. I just stuck to it because I knew it was important and beneficial. I think in general, if there are things that you have a very clear understanding is important for you, then you prioritize and you simply create time for it. I mean, you never give any excuses because it's like your first priority. Everything else comes second. So, so there has to be very, very good reasons for me to deviate from my yoga routines. I mean, it's not that I never do it, but there has to be good reasons. And I mean, even when I travel, and I've been traveling quite a bit for my job, and I will always make sure to end up somewhere near a center where I can go for morning class, I can have my meals, maybe I can, meet the family. And I never miss that opportunity because, especially when you are away from your daily settings, and it becomes a bit more of a challenge to keep up your routines. And so that's also something I prioritize a lot. And if I look back at my my life before Gyan, I mean, there's one thing I can definitely say has been a sort of part of my heritage, my sanskaras, maybe an eternal sanskara. I pretty much think that anything we accumulate now in Brahmin life, it more or less becomes eternal. It might be waning off a bit, but it will always be there as a sanskara, and it's basically all our specialities. All our specialities in terms of powers, virtues, wisdom, insight, all of that will be pretty much part of our DNA throughout each and every life. Either in a merged or more dormant form. So one thing I can definitely see when I look back at my life is that there was always this endurance. I would go through anything, and there would, in the back of my mind, always be some sort of subconscious feeling that any sort of endurance or any pain or suffering that you went through would come back as a victory at some point. There would be a benefit, and I mean nothing would go to waste. There was a kind of a justice in life, which we of course call karma today, but I was not conscious of the karma philosophy at that time. So it was pretty much again a sanskara, and that would make me even for instance, during my apprenticeship, those 3 years were not always so easy for me, but I went through it, and I might have considered maybe to abandon it at some point, but it was just not my nature to abandon things. When I first set my course, I usually stay on it, and I'm usually the last one to leave because it's I don't know, it's just not me to just discontinue something I have started, unless there is the if it is clearly a bad choice, then of course I will revise it and change it. But otherwise, challenges and obstacles will not make me stop. So that was a sort of sanskara which I think came to a great help in my Brahmin life. That because I think that is definitely one of the key powers we need. I mean, we have to be able to endure And of course, after so many years, I have seen so many Brahmins coming and going, and sad enough, I have to say, most of them have been leaving at some point. I mean, there are not that many left from the year I came. So it's, I mean, if you have to survive as a beginner, you definitely need the power of endurance and that stamina. So, and persistence. And I think since then I have also realized that this thing about routine is actually something I find a certain fondness or pleasure in. I mean, to maintain a routine, to find a good system and perfect it, keep refining it, and then holding it up and just continuing to follow that routine is something, many people would maybe find it boring, and to do the same things over and over every day. But and I know a lot of BKs who have a lot of difficulties with routines. But to me, routines is also one of the key factors in a spiritual life. I don't think you can get very far without discipline and routine. And I don't think we should, maybe especially in the West, we have maybe some problems with discipline, but discipline is something that is absolutely essential. I don't think we can survive without discipline. And of course, it has to be discipline based on common sense, and it has to be balanced, all of that, always, like anything else, but it has to be there. And if we only do things when we feel like doing them, when we are in the mood for them, I mean, then we are not going to achieve stability in our spiritual life. It has to be done based on value systems. So that's what I mentioned before. The value systems are really the very foundation of any life. Anything we want to achieve in life has to be based on strong values. And if we just follow our likes and dislikes, we are not going to achieve a sort of constant and predictable success in our life. It will be fluctuating. So we better learn to love discipline and make it part of our lifestyle. And fortunately, for me, many of the disciplines have been coinciding with my preferences and my interests in Brahmin life. As I said, yoga has never been an issue for me. To sit down and have yoga has always been a source of great pleasure and relief in my life. So on one hand, I had great benefit from it. On the other hand, I also knew that it was important. So this was, I think, also a great fortune in my life, that certain things came quite easy to me. I didn't have to struggle much. And as I said, especially in the first years, but I think it continued for at least 10, 15 years. I had amazing yoga experiences, often at Amritvela, but actually all times. those experiences were sometimes, not always just a pleasure. It could also be felt almost like an operation. Baba is the surgeon operating on the soul and pulling out all the impurities and vices, and so it would sort of be a mixed, very strange, mixed experience of bliss and great, a very exalted state of mind, and at the same time also a strange type of pain. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but you would always know when you came out of it that it always felt good, and it was always very clear that it was purifying. A lot of I would say my internal atmosphere changed after around 10-15 years of accumulation. So I think in Brahman life we tend to progress in stages. There are sort of distinct milestones in our life, which we can only, of course, understand in hindsight, and we can see that okay, I made a certain effort for a number of years, and then finally after I might not have experienced a sort of continuous progress during that time, but then after a number of years, there will suddenly be the realization that something has gone, something has changed, and so it's a transformation that that's sort of I don't know. There's a lot of preparation work going on, and then suddenly there is a sort of almost a phase transition into something else. You realize that things that were there before have suddenly disappeared, and I'll come back to that in the second part. So after coming to Baba, I never looked back. It was like I mentioned before. It was a very, very easy and very swift birth, and there was never that second thought or that consideration whether it was the right thing for me or whether I should. I was at that age, 21. I was single. I was not in a relationship or had any family. So I was a bachelor, and I enjoyed that life, and I have always enjoyed it since then. So it has also never been an issue for me, whether even neither then nor later whether I wanted relationships or family, or that type of life was really never an option for me. I always and I still greatly appreciate the fact that I have been able to stay free and independent throughout my life, and that I didn't end up in a bondage before I came to Baba, and so I never really looked back, and I also and that is, I think, also something that has been a great fortune in my life, that I was as soon as I started my spiritual life, it was like my old life or my old self completely died, in the sense that any thought, any sense of regret or resentment, or thinking about people who had harmed me or anything in my past, it simply vanished from overnight. There was never, and has never since been, any turning back and sort of having to deal with some sort of old stuff that I couldn't let go of. It was really like a new birth. So I just accepted whatever had happened, whatever was my past, and I considered my past to be sort of quite okay. So there was no major issues that I carried around, but it was. I really never went back to my past or thought much about it. It was a new start, really, a new beginning, and the whole notion of the drama has always been very dear to my heart. I always understand myself, look at myself, look at others in terms of the drama. The drama is like the framework of everything in my optics. So accepting the drama as it had been, and then moving on from there and turning a new page. So this was simply this was natural to me. So I've never had any issues with having to forgive people or having to carry on some traumatic experiences of the past. And for me, Brahman life has really been about three things. There have been three essential reunions, I would say. Of course, the main one is finding Baba, and but that is not all. I mean, I also consider the reunion with the family, finding my long lost brothers and sisters, to be equally important. Maybe obvious. I think that applies to all of us. But then also, third thing is my rediscovery of India, of Bharat. As I said, I went to India even a few years before Gyan, and at that time there wasn't not that sort of sense of recognition or of coming back, but it was a very subconscious thing, and as so many other things in my life, a very sudden decision. But after I came to Baba and I started going to Madhuban and India, I realized how deep my connection with that country is, and that culture. And I have had a lot of profound experiences in India, not only in Madhuban, but also on my travels in India. It has always been eye-opening, and it has been really like finding back to something you have been removed from, you have been separated from, just as with Baba, the same with India. And this is an experience that is, of course, quite unique for us double foreigners. Those who are Bharatwasis, they are, I mean, I don't imagine how they could have that experience. It's a pretty unique experience for double foreigners. And I really look at it as a, one of the main themes of my life, one of them, the most important aspects of my Brahman life has been that reunion or rediscovery of Bharat, and so for me, it has always, going to India has always, even though of course India today is far from what it was originally, and it's even in my during my life it has changed a lot, because when I first went to Bharat, India was still in many ways quite you can say backwards. It was not the modern developed India we know today. So it has completely changed, I would say, in those 30, 40 years. But and many, I know many people, even Brahmins, they have very mixed feelings about India, and some have a clear, I would say, disgust almost. I mean, they only go there once, maybe, or a few times, and then they don't return because they simply cannot tolerate the place. That has never been the case for me, but that recognition of Bharat has always been on a more subtle level. It has to do with vibrations and the nature of people. There's a sort of innocence I find that is very enchanting, very unique, very special. I don't find it in any other place in the world. It's pretty unique to India and Indians. So so these three aspects have been very important in my Brahmin life, and of course we had the great fortune here in Europe to have Dadi Janki with us for so many years. She was, as you know, based in London. She was not far away. When we often went to London for maybe just a few days, and she would be there and give, classes, and she would be there for retreats. And she was a great inspiration, probably the most important senior, I would say, in my life, and certainly the one I had most contact with. Just observing her and just listening to her, I always felt that Dadi was one of the very few genius souls in the yagya. I mean, genius is a special is something special. I mean, you only had a few Jagdish Bai, which maybe many of you didn't know, but he was also one of those great geniuses in the yagya. Amazing intellect, and very different in a way, but also a great intellect. And we had the opportunity to meet him many times. He would always be there in Madhuban during the double foreigner season. He would come at least once in every group and give a class. And I also had some personal connections with him. So and then, of course, many others. Today we have hardly any daddies left, but when I came, most of them were still alive. And although we didn't meet a lot of them in Madhuban, because they would be in their respective regions and centers, they would sometimes visit. Some of them also came to Europe, and we would meet them in London or elsewhere. So yeah, I think I will maybe leave it there for this first section. This is basically the my formation years, I would say from 85 up until 99, that was my time in Copenhagen. The family in Copenhagen was always quite small. There were those two sisters, as I mentioned, when I came, and there was one brother who had joined maybe 6 months before me, and that pretty much remained like that. There were a few others who came and some left again, but the family was never big. It was always basically just a handful of Brahmins. And so that's sort of the environment I grew up in, and that of course changed in '99 when I moved here to Aarhus. But I will come back to that afterwards. I don't know this format. Do you take questions now or at the end?
Yeah.
Or?
So let me just quickly check if anyone have any questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and share. And a couple of things I was thinking, Viggo, is if you can share or guide us into some nice meditation, those meditations which you had, some of the nice meditations, that purification kind of meditations that you had, that would be great. And I want to hear a little bit more about your experience of Bharat. Like, did you have the deja vu kind of experience, or is it like, oh, this lifestyle or the bhavna in India is something resonating with me, or it fits in well with me? Or if you can elaborate a little bit more, and also on the drama part, like how did you use the concept of drama and um, uh, in a situation that you had to apply the concept of drama. Maybe uh, parents got divorced and you felt that, oh, something is missing, and then you understood that way, or anything in that line.
Yeah. Well, as far as Bharat is concerned, I think, as I said, it's the recognition is something quite subtle. It's not a déjà vu experience as such. It's not a except maybe a feeling that I really just know this place so well. I have been here. This is so it's not a sort of recognition of any concrete places, but it's more that whole culture, that atmosphere is so familiar to me. And it's not only actually an experience I've had in India. There are a few countries which I've connected with in that way. And just to mention a few, Iran, which I visited, when was that? Maybe 5 years, 6 years ago. Same type of connection, and of course, I mean, it's basically part of the extended Bharat. So it's the Indo-Iranian sort of culture. So it's not so strange that I connect with it. But it was, I would say, my travels to these places have always been very moving experiences. And there's nothing that has moved me so much as visiting these places where it somehow strikes a chord very deep in the soul. Something is sort of rekindled, and the same with other countries, Russia, and I mean, of course, Bharat is special because you know that you have had so many births there, so the connection is so deep. But there is, in general, I don't know, in me a sensitivity to these very, very old and deep experiences of other cultures, other places, and it really often moves me it can be, just watching a dance in Madhuban or something else that it just brings up a lot of sanskaras. It stirs up sanskaras within the soul, and so on that level, I would say. And in terms of the drama, yes, I have probably used the drama. I mean, the drama has come to great help in dealing with sort of old relationships, especially with my mom, I would say, which was never an easy relationship, but that was mutual in a way. But it's like, as I said, everything started afresh when I came to Baba. It was like a new page turned, and I would simply just try to. First of all, I would accept, whatever had happened in the past, whatever happened had been due to some sort of karma. That was clear, and there was no reason to go too much into it. It's just a question of accepting that that is the drama. It has happened. It will happen again, and then from there on, try to somehow repair whatever might have been damaged in old relationships. And so I think in that sense, and also in many other situations, I've used the drama, or I would rather say the notion of the drama has been there in the background, and so it has made it much easier to let go of whatever could have been an issue. So yeah, but let's have some meditation. So let's this would be my Amrit Vela, by the way. So let's meditate on our childhood. Baba says that we should never forget the days of our childhood. So my childhood memories, my early memories in Brahma life, for all of us will be special. That's the time where we woke up from our slumber and realized the truth. The time of recognition, of coming back to our roots and belonging. It's all about belonging. So we have been scattered and fragmented, spread all around. And Baba gathers us together as one family. childhood is the time of marveling, of deep realizations. Everything is new, exciting, fascinating. And Baba does a lot of work on us in the beginning because he has to attract us and keep us to himself. So he's spoiling us with lots of experiences, filling our hearts so that we never feel tempted to go back to the old world. And such was my experience in the beginning. Baba would pick up the soul. I would sit there, and after a while, Baba would arrive just like a gust of wind and pick up the soul into the state of bliss. Baba usually says that we are the lovers, he is the beloved. But sometimes we can have the experience of being the beloved and Baba the lover. The lover is the active part, which you can say the bridegroom which picks up the bride and takes it home. In that state, I've had the experiences of the greatest love. And a fulfillment that completely filled the heart of the soul. Because when the soul is full and fulfilled and content, there's no room for any longing or yearning, complaining. Attraction, attachments, so many things. As we grow older, our childhood becomes a faint memory. So we have to revive it sometimes, remind ourselves how special that time was. How unique, how precious, and that it's bound to return again and again. It's eternal. This is where our faith is founded. Om Shanti.
Something.
So, as I said, it was in a way my first phase in Brahmin life was from 85 to 99. I think 99 was a quite decisive year for me because I I recall that towards the end of the 90s, I had the feeling that I was in a way stagnating a bit. I mean, there had been these years of immense change and progress and amazing experiences in yoga, and it somehow came to a leveling off during the late 90s. And I think I realized at that point that I needed to make a move. I need to change somehow my surroundings, and I had to step up onto a new level to really make more progress. It was like I had reached a plateau, and I could of course stay there, but it was not really fulfilling because I knew that there was still a long way to go, and And moreover, as I mentioned, the family in Copenhagen was always very small, and it didn't really seem to grow further. So I thought that maybe it was about time to open a second center in Denmark, in the west, in Aarhus, where I am now. Maybe that would be where the expansion was lying, and we had it happened so that we had been invited to by some contacts to come here and give lectures and participate in some mind body spirit fairs. That was, I think in '98, and even before that, a few times I had been here. And then obviously it was almost impossible to sustain these souls. I mean, this was before we had online options, so it was pretty much a question of coming, giving a course, but then you would have to come on a regular basis, and if there was no center, there was really no place souls could go and have meditation, and so it was not really feasible to continue like that, and then I just thought, why not simply move over here and start another center and take that leap and see what happens. Maybe it will also give me new inspiration and a new sort of growth in my Brahman life. So I remember that it was pretty much, in a way, a decision motivated by wanting to grow beyond my current plateau, and just as much, at least as much as it was a question of service, it was really for my own benefit, and I always wanted to have the experience of living in a center. I mean, it was the sisters who lived there. We were the brothers. We just came there for morning class and evening meditation. But I always felt that living in the center atmosphere must be very, very nice, and it was an experience that I didn't want to miss. So for all these reasons, I made the choice to move to Aarhus, and at that time. I mean, over the years, I had left this bakery trade many years before, and I had done my IT training, and then I went to university and did a physics and maths master. And after university, I went into the IT field immediately, and so I already had a job then in '99, and they were just opening an office in Aarhus. So it was actually it was a lot of things that sort of coincided and to my favor, and so I asked them if I could be posted to the office in Aarhus, and that was fine. So I moved over here, and for the only reason really to start the center. Initially I was, of course, alone. I had to build up everything, and so. But these years in Aarhus in the beginning were great learning for me. It was a totally new type of experience. And I'm really glad that I made that move, because it taught me a lot of things that I would never have learned if I had continued my life in Copenhagen. Running a center, first of all, having to build up a center, and then after a few years, when Brahmins started to appear, having to sustain them, and at the same time, facing all your sanskaras and karmic accounts, and settling them at the same time, that you have to serve and sustain these people. All of that was great learning for me, and I also, around the same time, I noticed that I don't think it was in any way connected, but it was just coincidental, that I also noticed that there was a major shift in my internal state, my spiritual state. It was like, and I still remember very clearly, I was walking on the street in Aarhus, and I suddenly realized that there was a kind of background peace inside, a sort of all-permeating sense of peace. It was not. I was not in yoga at that moment, so it was simply the accumulation of yoga power over all those years that had finally settled, and it had sort of changed my background. My ground state, I would say my ground state had sort of moved up, from being, however it was in the beginning, full of impurities. So that purification over, a long period of time, as I mentioned before, it was not sort of noticeable as a gradual daily change, but eventually, after a number of years, it became very apparent that some change had happened. And I think, I don't know how to explain it, but I think that there is a sort of, there are certain thresholds that once we pass beyond them, we will experience those milestones or leaps. Things are changing quite suddenly. It's like a phase shift, you heat up the water and then suddenly it starts boiling. So until that point, it will just become warmer and warmer. There will be no change from liquid to vapor, and likewise when you freeze it. So these phase transitions, I use that term as an analogy, but they are pretty similar to what happens in Brahman life. That we have a long phase of preparation, and then we see the phase transition. And there's no way you can anticipate it or expect that. You don't know it's going to happen. You just see it as it happens, and then you understand the mechanisms. So, I mean, a lot of the intricate mechanisms of spiritual change is completely unknown to us. So we will never we have no way to know them initially, and we will only know them through our own transformation. Even if other people would explain it to us, we wouldn't really understand what it feels like. We have to go through it, and that is, I think, a part of the experience that Baba so often talks about. How experience becomes the greatest authority in our life. That's an experience you cannot acquire by any other means than going through it yourself. And I often think of these experiences as being one of the greatest treasures in our life. We Brahmin souls, we gain that experience, which is pretty much reserved for us. I mean, there are no other souls who go through this kind of transformation to that extent, and become experienced as us. And I think that sort of spiritual experience is really what makes us different from everyone else, and that is, and will always make us different, because now we are very different. We live a different type of life. Our priorities are so different. The difference is probably never as great as it is now. But even throughout the whole cycle, we will be different because of that stamp that is made on us now. It will make us different. It will make us unique and special. Even after we have lost most of our powers and virtues and purity, we will still have that stamp in us, and it will, of course, eventually lead us back to Baba. But it will also, in each and every life, it will be lying there as a kind of backdrop. It will somehow subconsciously guide us through our lives and make us pursue truth and God, in whatever form, whatever distorted form it might become. It will still be an earnest, search for getting back to our roots. I think it's and I this is something I increasingly become aware of as time goes by, that how much we have deviated from our roots, and I mean, our Shudra life, how distorted it was, and how different it really was from where we came from. It was not just a minor alteration; it was a complete 180 degrees reversal of all our values and value systems and nature, really. It's I often think of, our story is a bit like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. We are like in the day we are Dr. Jekyll, in the night we become Mr. Hyde. And we do all sorts of crazy stuff, that we even forget. The next morning we have like we have no recollection of what we did during the night. So it's a pretty immense transformation that we go through now, and an immense fall that we have gone through meanwhile. So so there was this very, very clear realization that things had changed within me, and on a very, very subtle level. It was not a sort of big dramatic external change, but it was simply a change of internal climate, of a background piece. So it means that in the beginning, there would be this great contrast between yoga and non-yoga, meaning whenever you sat for meditation, you would experience immense peace of mind and liberation and whatnot. And then when you stepped out of yoga, you would be in a completely different state of mind. Not immediately, but after a while, you would sort of be, your old sanskaras would catch up somehow, because there was not yet a great transformation taking place. There was the transformation takes time before it kicks in and becomes really solid and lasting. Until then, you need to fill up again and again on a daily basis. So that's why I think there is the tendency that in the beginning, in our early years as Brahmins, because we are coming from a state of depletion, then the contrast is greatest, and we will experience a huge lift during meditation, and the difference, the contrast between being in meditation and not being in meditation is greater. But just like with a battery that is charged, if it's completely discharged, it will draw a lot of current initially, and then as it approaches a fully charged state, it will just trickle charge eventually, because it's it cannot. The potential difference is not so great anymore. So the same thing happens in terms of our spiritual empowerment, that we will, and I think it's a natural thing, that we will always experience the biggest in a way, we will have the most powerful yoga experiences in our early days of Brahman life, because that is where we have to bridge the largest gap, and as that is bridged, the intensity of our yoga will usually flatten out a bit. It will be of a different character. It will be more like trickle charging, which still has to be done on a daily basis. It's not that it's less important, but it's just it serves a different purpose. It's more like maintaining your charge rather than filling up from depletion. Because sometimes Brahmins ask, why has our yoga changed, and it's not as powerful as it used to be, and of course there can be all sorts of reasons for that. It can also be that I'm neglecting yoga. I'm not, really paying enough attention to it. But other than that, there is this natural law that we are all subjected to, which we should know about, and it shouldn't surprise us. I mean, it is the nature of our spiritual evolution that there will be a non-linear sort of progress. It will be always, the progress will always be most in the beginning, and then it will flatten out. It's like any learning curve. You will learn a lot in the beginning when you know nothing. Within a very short span of time, you will take great leaps, and then for a very long time, you will make gradual, steady progress, but it will not be in such big leaps as it was initially. And so there's nothing unusual about that. But that means that the difference between being in yoga and not being in yoga diminishes over time, and it becomes like, of course, it's different to be sitting in yoga and being, fully immersed and fully focused. You can often not be that during action or at any other time, but it will. The difference will not be that great. It will. You will still have the peace of mind and the sense of security and contentment and all the other things that follow from peace and yoga power. It will still be there in the background. It will never leave you. And I think, to me, that's how I understand the effect of purification and soul consciousness. That's how basically we will operate in the golden age. There will be no yoga, no conscious yoga. There will be no notion of Baba. There will be no yoga routines as now, but there will still be that peace. So the effect of yoga is simply to build that peace, support or reservoir up now, and then it will follow us. And because we are not, because our whole lifestyle is so pure, then it will last for a very, very long time, and it will only discharge very, very slowly and gradually. So that experience should really start now itself. It's not that transition that I mentioned. That phase transition should not happen only after we leave the body, or as we also make the transition to a new age. The spiritual transition has to happen now, at this time, before time. Obviously, and it should be. We really have to ensure that we are reaping that fruit now, and it's not something we should anticipate in the future as a future achievement. It has to be an achievement now, and enjoy it now, and even, as Baba says, over a long period of time, because it's something that has to go very deep inside.
Really beautiful. So I was wondering if you can share a little bit about when the yoga becomes flattened. Do you have any special meditation that you do? You take yourself to Madhuban in mind, or any favorite places that you meditate? And if you can guide us into meditation, that we can.
Well, I think that if your yoga is a bit flat, I think the first thing to check is whether there are any known reasons for it. I mean, it could be that I am that there are certain routines or certain things in my Brahman life that I need to change, because yoga doesn't come unless the whole foundation, the whole preparation for it is in place. We cannot expect to have good yoga, if our dharana, for instance, is bad, or if we have issues with different relationships, or with the vices, or all of these things have to be in a way dealt with. Of course, we cannot wait until all that is settled before we have yoga. We have to sort of practice both simultaneously, but obviously we cannot expect our yoga to be better than our general stage. So we have to see it as something that has to be prepped somehow. We have to have attention on our life and lifestyle, our routines, on our awareness, consciousness, our thoughts, and take corrective actions if any of these are not as they should be, and then we can at least have all the prerequisites for a good yoga. And so I think a lot of it cannot be changed on the fly. It has to be changed as part of my general setup, and that's why it's such an important part of our spiritual growth to be able to constantly monitor ourselves and check and change, as Baba calls it, and rectify, whatever is a bit misaligned. We have to adjust it, bring ourselves on track, because there are very narrow margins in Brahman life. We cannot deviate too much from Srimad before we pay the penalty. And in the first place we will pay the penalty is, of course, in yoga. It will suffer. So we have to be pretty much on track, and that is something we better learn to love. I mean, I think the worst thing that can happen is if there's an internal struggle, between the Srimad and Manmat. We basically all know what Srimad says, but then there are second or other priorities, that pulls in different directions, and then we are in the middle of a tug of war between different priorities. All of these internal conflicts have to be resolved, and And that is in a way a bit outside the realm of yoga. It's yoga can certainly help us doing that, and it does, but there are many other things that come into play here. I mean, it all has to do with our value systems that I mentioned before. Unless and until we really make our value systems very strong, so strong that they are not only determining our attitude and awareness, but also empowering us and giving us the incentive to follow truth and follow Srimad. That is, I think, when we will start experiencing stability. So I don't think there's any. I don't have any sort of magic trick or any way to sort of turn on the yoga. I think it has to be the solution has to be found, in all the other areas of our life.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions, comments? Kalpana Ben, Olga?
Om Shanti. I'm a new Raj Yoga student, have been doing it for the last 3 years or so. So what today's talk convinced me is that this is a marathon. It's not a quick sprint. And what you describe as your transition, when being in yoga and not being in yoga, you are in the same stable state of peace. What Baba calls achal adol in Hindi, where nothing kind of gets to you. Do you find that it has affected your work life and everything else?
Oh yeah, very much. I mean, I haven't been touching that at all, but I mean, I have a very busy work life, which takes a lot of my time, actually, also too much, I think. But that's how it is. It's sort of part of my karma. But the interesting thing is that in spite of that, I actually am very happy about my work life, and I wouldn't want to be without that experience, because I think that every day at work I am actually putting my spiritual assets, achievements, powers at test. I mean, this is really where I am applying them. Whenever I deal with people, whenever we deal with people, we can apply whatever Baba has taught us. We don't have to sort of give lectures to friends and colleagues. Just simply dealing with them as human to human calls for everything we have learned. Whatever wisdom, whatever part of whatever power and virtue can be applied, and the more challenging your life is, in a way, the more there's a need for applying these assets. So to me, it's a great opportunity for learning. I am learning so much every day, simply by being at work. And so that's also the beauty about this path, that there's not this contrast. It's not a path of isolation. It's the path of integration. You are integrating your spiritual life with your worldly life. And often people ask about the balance between these two. For me, it's not so much a balance. It's more a question of priority. My main focus and priority is always my spiritual life, and whatever else, my work life is sort of is dependent on my spiritual foundation. If I don't have a strong spiritual foundation, then nothing will work out in my life, neither at work nor in my relationships. Nothing will be successful if I'm not if I don't have spiritual success. So it's really the foundation, and everything else is subordinate. It's second priority.
My one takeaway from this is constantly monitor yourselves. I think, when Baba says, stay in remembrance, what he's saying, be in touch with how much of your attention is towards the world and how much of your attention is towards your own internal development. So thank you so much for showing us the path, and Om Shanti.
So it's a time for another yoga now, or no?
Yeah, we can just have a meditation and wrap up. Olga, you want to say something?
I had a question about the chart. Do you practice the chart, like following up with the chart to see any progress or to see if there's fluctuation? It's just I'm curious about that. And thank you for the talk.
No, I never actually practiced this. I never, found it, I don't know, somehow natural. It's for me, that sort of check is in a way constantly going on, and I would rather rather than making a daily assessment in the evening or whenever, I would rather sort of correct the things when they are imminent, and if I have, if I'm going astray, mentally or in my routines, I will always immediately experience the effect of it. I'll be very aware. I don't think, I guess most Brahmins are fully aware when they deviate from Srimad. It's not, that we are completely oblivious or ignorant about it. But what tends to happen is that we get this sort of split priority, that we, on one hand, we know what we should do, what we basically want to do, but then there are some sanskaras or some other parts of us which is pulling the opposite way, and then we have this sort of inner conflict, and we have to make a choice. And again, I think it's really, at the end of the day, our value systems that will come to our rescue here. We cannot follow. I mean, we certainly shouldn't follow sanskaras, and we also have to be very careful about following. You can say likes and dislikes and intuition and all these things. I very much believe that in the intellect, in anything that is based on insight and wisdom and conviction, and that is going to be consistent, and is going to support us through anything. We can go through anything. We will not fluctuate or waver if just value systems are strong enough. So
thank you. I think there is this Valerie. You want to say something?
Yes, brother, this was the most brilliant conversation you've shared with us this evening, and how you have made your spiritual life your priority, and it's become your regular life. It's what you do. It's who you are. And it's just very insightful what you shared, and your values and the systems you're using as making them practical and making them everyday, your everyday life. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's have a little
meditation.
and so we can move on, and we can maybe make the theme of this meditation growing up. We had our childhood, now we are growing up and we are entering a new relationship with Baba, not as the child, but as the partner, the worthy, equal partner, which is a very different experience. This is a relationship where we take responsibility. It often is connected with service when we do Baba service, because this is something very important. In our relationship with Baba, he expects from us that we do his service in whatever way we can. And there are many ways we can fulfill this expectation. By sharing knowledge, by contributing, and even by just being a support for others, sharing all the things that Baba has given you in terms of powers and virtues. Basically just being what Baba has made you. So the childhood is the time of growing up and learning. It includes our student life. But the partnership with Baba is something different. This is where Baba can use you as an instrument in all sorts of ways. takes us to a new level of experience, even more unique. This is the phase where we are becoming stable and faithful, and we have left all the mischievous childhood games behind us. We are mature, knowledgeable. We can take care of ourselves and others. And we are receiving a new type of inheritance here. This is where we qualify to become an heir. Om Shanti.